Hi, this is Man of ServerBoy UK. Today I just want to talk about Pmailer. It's a Python 3 based SMTP application. It basically sends email for you without using postfix or local MTA. The reason for that is when I heard about requirement that people most of the time your application want to send notification email, anything like invoicing to clients, and it's a whole bunch of them, and they would send it via some script to a local postfix or your next MTA, and then read the queue or something and get some response, and with a little clumsy on not sure if we tried and things like those, or even manual. So I was thinking, why not just use Python or any scripting language with a SMTP library just to send it out directly. Essentially very much like if you manually use telnet to a mx of a remote of a recipient domain. You do the HLO, the RFC 822 command sequence for SMTP, and you essentially could do the same thing in your script. So I thought of that, spent the weekend, and then I put up Pmailer as a proof of concept, and it actually turns out to be quite nicely small size project that I put up on GitHub under this link that you could hopefully, if you like, you could help up on making it better. The idea is, let me show, is like this is the old way, and the new way is very much like that, just a mailer in a sense. And when you think about it, you could be file based. Each job could be in a file. But I thought about that it's kind of like messy to manage all these files, so I use MySQL. Essentially having each job, I track about the large, the biggest field that you could put up your message in it, and most of the time your application won't be sending huge email, so it probably would work. That's why it is. It's going to be in the database. In terms of performance and things like those, I would say that it probably would be alright, but I haven't got much into testing yet in terms of performance. And then from there to remote MTA recipient, with that picture, essentially this program should be able to get response code directly, so you have pretty much direct control to know if your email is delivered to the MX of your target recipient's domain. So that's the idea. Now let's get to the code. I just spent about 2 days on it. The last commit was 19 hours ago. I probably tonight I need to clean up something on the comments and the debug pinlines. Then let's go to where the codes are. Hope you can see it. I make it bigger. It's very simple, just all these files, none of them are relevant. Let's go to the schema first. The schema is here. So I have a table mails, which is with auto increment ID, simple, and the recipient. I'm assuming there's no need to put up sender, because your sender should be like a hardcode static sender, like no reply at blah blah blah.com, as is one-way mailing. And then subject, message. The message, the long text, I think is like, if I read the number correctly, it's like 4 GB size. So correct me if I'm wrong. So it's so big. It's general email. It's like 30 megabyte attachment, things like this, so I don't really worry about it. And this tries is a counter that's very important. I have in the README documentation, when it's -1, that means it's sent properly. Initially it's 0. Each unsuccessful send with transient error, we will put back to the job log as an increment of 1. So you got bigger and bigger tries count, and when the Pmailer tries to pick a job from the database, it would pick the one with the smallest tries. So essentially, you are doing a little like delaying the retry email and giving priority to the new one. I guess it's fair. Just a starvation policy or something. And submitted date time, sent date time just for record keeping. Primary key is auto increment. That's mainly just to make the transaction record unique. Okay. Of course, you punch in your own user ID password. Doesn't matter. Those are not relevant. And then there's a script to insert data, just test data. So test data are here. So you basically could keep on repeating this setup, make it easy for you to do testing when you clone it from Git. Okay, the main driver program is here. Now the way that it's designed is to be able to run at least one Pmailer. So you could run many Pmailer. And of course there's contention on trying to access the database. It's only one single database, but it's no big deal, I guess, nowadays. And I do row level locking at the isolation policy. So it's atomic. When you pick a job, it updates the tries count to -1, so the other Pmailer won't be able to pick the same job. So essentially, if it's correct, there is atomicity there, and you don't get two mailers send the same job. Alright, so a lot of commands, things like those. It's not cleaned up yet, but it will be, or you could help. This is the static where you set up your own sender email, and then this one is to do database connection. So dbcon is a function in the db module file, which you will see in one of those utility files. I like to put it up that way to make it easier to read the code. And then there's a perpetual loop. You pick a job. Now this is important because you don't want to open up db connection every single job or tries. You want to have one connection, and then the loop would use the same connection forever. I would say is a heavyweight kind of connection, so that saves a lot of CPU cycle for MySQL to handle all this polling. You pick a job. If the return is good, this is just a debug line, the print. And then deliver mail is the SMTP function, the function that actually implements the handshake. You will see later. And then if it's not successful, else here, then we retry the job. And if we don't get a job, like pick a job, and if the length is not greater than 0, that means there's nothing returned, then there's no job found, and we sleep 1 second or how many seconds you want and go back to the loop and pick another job, that sort of thing. So fairly simple. Done. Okay, now let's look at the DB part. dbpy. Okay, now DB connection is fairly like that. Look, the statics on the database side of the password here. So you do one connection for each session, and you return a handle or whatever you call it, and with that handle you so-called DB, I think it's pass by value. So you got that handle back, and then you pass it in again. dbcheck is a function I tested just to see if auto commit is set to 0. We need auto commit to be 0. So we do our own commit here. db insert job is a function where I have another Python module that would command line that would insert a new job that's for the application side to call to submit an email, just like an API thing. Of course, we don't have RESTful and things like those at this moment. We could do it, but never mind, later. To insert a record in it, very simple. Okay, and then pick a job is here. Look at the C code, is select from mails where tries bigger than or equal to 0. Order by try, so we sort it. That's the thing. We sort it by in ascending order. So you always pick the job with the smallest tries count, other than -1, of course. I only pick one, and then I use for update to lock it in a sense. So it's locked at this moment, and then if it's alright, I would update it, set it to -1 within the same transaction. So at this moment, other Pmailer, if you're running multiple of them, it won't be able to get this row. And set it to -1, and then for that same ID, and then commit. The exceptions are to handle if it's error, then roll back everything. So when it's done, we return that row out to as a dictionary. I set it somewhere in SMTP, the DB side to return these as a dictionary, so I could access the field by name. Retry job is fairly much the same idea. Pass a DB handle, the row ID, and new count. Then the new count should be incremented by 1 by the calling side. So we set tries to that and update. So we got the job record update to a bigger try count, 1 more, and wait for the next pickup. So that's db retry. Simple, isn't it? Once my thought is once the architecture, the data sign is thought out, the codings are really simple. It's very structured. So I use PyMySQL. I understand there are something like MySQL connection. There are few like 2 or 3 Python SQL library. I haven't got enough time to really research into. I think the slowest is the MySQL connection or something on benchmark, and PyMySQL is somewhere in between. It does have certain bugs. I would say I don't. It's all not documented very well, and I'm not sure if I use them very well. But that's the best I could use. So I just use it for the sake of testing it. Okay, this part is okay. All right, now go to SMTP part. Oh, sorry. So SMTP library is extended from Python 3. I need to set up my host is a static. You need to change it to whatever host name you're running this on as like an MTA, and you need to set SPF on your name server for whatever sending domain to have at least this host that you're sending as your in your SPF MX. So the receiving side would, if they check SPF, they wouldn't regard you as invalid or suspicious. So that's something you need to work it out on your name server, on your bind. So deliver mail, you first get the domain of the receiver email address. Get domain is in the utility file. So I extract the, say is blah 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 at whatever domain, and just extract that domain. And getmx is another utility function where I get the mx record from the given the domain. So I would grab the first host mx I got, and then that's the mx host. And the message is a f string. It would be formatted as like that, according to RFC 822 format, SMTP. Subject, message, the message is here. Message is passed from the calling side, of course, so yeah, very simple. And then do an SMTP connection here. Right, then issue mail from. I do a EXLO first, mail from, visit to, and data. And then after data, the message are sent. Now this is the important part. I debug for a few times. Initially I didn't put the carriage return there, just double knife it. I tested with some PostFix server and it works, but not Google. So I finally strike it down. I think Google is right, that we need to be very careful on conforming to RFC. So it's carriage return knife it, dot carriage return knife it, and then it works. Except when I initially I forgot to do a quit and then close the session, and then the library generates an exception, SMTP exception, that caused a little mess up, and finally I do a quit and it works out. It doesn't raise the exception, but it still comes back with a 500, even though the email delivery was successful with a 250. So that part I haven't figured out yet, but since it works for both Google and other PostFix mailer that I tested, so I just let it go now, and then debug it later. Or you could help if you like, and let us know if that's something wrong with how to quit. Okay, so yeah, I put a this exception line there, and finish. So that's the delivery parts. Then you might argue, if you know SMTP lib, that why not use sendmail or send message with in the library? I tried. Actually, that was the first try. It's not good. It doesn't give you fine control on each step's error. Sometimes it doesn't even generate the exception. So I have no idea why it's not working, why it is working. And it also generates a whole bunch of pre-nice on the transaction when it's sent. And I tried different ways to capture it. There's no way I could programmatically capture it, so I gave up. The whole idea of Pmailer is to be able to have more control on your sending error. So you could decide if you want to retry, tell your application calling side what's wrong, and things like those. So if there's no fine control, there's no point using it. Might as well use local postfix, right? So I decided to use the docmd. Fortunately, they have this lower level command API that I could send SMTP command to the other side, and yeah, that looks fairly alright now. Alright, okay, and I will speed up a little, getting too long. Utility is get domain, split it, very easy. Get mx, DNS resolve for the mx. Get the first line and then extract the relevant information and kick the priority array. I didn't sort it out. I didn't do a sorting for the lowest. When you have multiple mx, the one with the lowest priority, highest priority with lowest number at the front is the one which you should pick, right, in general. But I just pick the first one that returns. It might not be the one with the lowest weight. So that part I think we need to sort it out. I would suggest just to do some sorting, or just to loop over all the return mx and pick the one with the lowest. That's easy, but I may be able to do it tonight and finish it. All right, so this is simple. And mxpy global. Oh, I tried to put some to use globalwar and set global variable in here, so import from all other modules. I mean, global meaning static things, and eventually that might be useful rather than having to repeat all this static here and there in the modules if that grow. Remember, submit. Submit is another, is the one that would, like, if you do a submit, if you get a email file, assume you put your email text file into that file, and you pipe it to submit with recipient and subject. That's the command line interface where it actually insert a job record into the database, and assuming you have multiple Pmailers running at the background for that application, then it would pick the job automatically. So yeah, db insert job with a timestamp, very simple, good deal, easy. Okay, so submit job. Okay, with me, I try to put as much description as enough, not to borrow anyone, and some of the TOD thing about other handshake like SSL, TLS, and things like those. You could do it. I think the library has SSL, TLS there, and could add on it. And for sending you encode email, you could always, like HTML5 based email, you could you encode it and also store in the same structure of the message field. I think that's no problem. But then with that, the header might need to add a field header to let the mailer to conform to the specification that is a say a you encode mail, blah blah blah. No matter what, I guess the main thing is to make it simple, reliable, with direct control. And then the last thing is about logging. I think it's good to add a table log or text log for each tries, each attempt to do that delivery, retry or no error, so you could search it. Well, I haven't figured out how, in what scenario, and how to do it in a clean way without having a lot of housekeeping. And then looking, not much is very much like that. And API again is it's supposed to be for application. So I think a RESTful application, and even put it in a container, the type thing would be good, would be clean. So need an API to let apps to call it easily, and then some archiving routine function to clean up the database when, like, the jobs are all -1 done. Then some housekeeping thing, just let it to clean up all finished jobs from the database. Just don't let it grow forever. That should be it, I guess. If you have any opinion, anything that you want to add, or you yourself want to clone it and help out together, make it better, write better codes, please feel free, and hope that helps someone. Cheers. Bye.